Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be showing you how to make a modern batwing sweater. This labor of love has been in the works for quite some time, but finally got some yarn and here she is. A comfy batwing sweater using a stitch combo new to the channel. Speaking of, if you're new to the channel and like all things crochet, stay a while. We've got hundreds of modern crochet designs with more on the way, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on with the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 650 grams of yarn, and that's 1,000 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 6.5 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us your favorite sitcom. For me, you can never go wrong with I Love Lucy. Details for the giveaway down below. We are using 4 stitches for this project and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we'll explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting the sweater started, we're first going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 5 millimeter hook and start off by making an odd number chain that reaches from our collarbone to our collarbone. Before I give you guys my numbers, I'm going to show you guys a trick on how to make a really long chain without it twisting. So start by making a chain of 5. Once we have our chain 5, we are going to pull some slack, remove our hook, and then we're going to insert our hook into that first chain that we made. Insert our slack loop back onto our hook and pull, and then from here we're going to chain per usual. My odd number chain is going to be 9 inches or 23 centimeters that reaches from my collarbone to my collarbone. So I'm going to make a chain of 35. Now that we have our chain from collarbone to collarbone, we're going to make 1 extra chain and insert our stitch marker into that chain that we just made for our shoulder. From here, we're going to make another odd number chain from our collarbone down to the depth of our collar. And mine's going to be another 9 inches or 23 centimeters, so another chain of 35. Now that we have this portion of our chain, we're going to do another chain of 1. We're going to grab a different colored stitch marker because this is going to be for the depth of our collar, and insert our stitch marker into that chain that we just made. And from here, we're going to make 1 more chain that reaches back up to our collarbone. Mine is going to be the same as my previous chain, so another chain of 35. And now that we have that chain, just like before, we're going to chain 1 extra and insert our last stitch marker into that chain that we just made. This is for our shoulder as well. And then from here, since we should be into that chain that we made and our first chain, we're going to pull that first loop underneath our second loop. And now our chain is connected and not twisted. So this is what our chain should look like so far. We're now going to do a single crochet row after this with some increases where our stitch markers are at. So working towards our shoulder stitch marker, we're going to chain 1 and put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach that shoulder stitch mark. Let's put 1 into that first chain together. Into that same chain that our slip stitch is in, we're going to insert with 1 single crochet. Let's do 1 more. Into that next chain, insert your hook, pull through. Should have 2 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through 2. continue to put 1 single crochet into every chain until we reach our stitch marker. We reached our stitch marker, so from here we're going to take this out for now and then do an increase of 2 into that chain. So all that is inserting with 1 single crochet and then with 1 more single crochet into that same chain. From here, we're going to insert our stitch marker into that first single crochet that we did when we did our increase of 2, or the second stitch away from our hook. And once we have that, we are going to continue to put 1 single crochet into every chain until we reach our next stitch marker, which should be the depth of our collar. And now that we reached our next stitch marker, we're going to take this out for now. And for this chain, we're going to be doing an increase of 3 because this is the point of our collar. So we're going to insert our hook with 1 single crochet into that same chain with 2 single crochet, and then once more into that same chain with 3 single crochets. And from here, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the second single crochet that we made into this increase of 3, or the second stitch from our hook. So insert your hook into there, and then put 1 single crochet into every chain until we reach our last stitch marker. So at our last stitch marker, we're going to do another increase of 2 single crochets. So take this out, and into that last chain, we're going to insert with 1, then insert with our second single crochet. From here, we're going to insert our stitch marker into that second single crochet that we made into our increase of 2, or that stitch that's closest to our hook. And now we're going to slip stitch it into that first chain 1 space that we did. We just want to make sure that our collar isn't twisted. And from here, insert your hook into that chain 1 space with a slip stitch to connect it all. Once when we have that, we're going to be putting 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch, making sure that we insert our stitch markers into the same stitches. So let's just do the first one together. We're going to chain 1, and then into that first back loop, insert your hook, and then single crochet like normal. Into that next back loop, insert your hook, and single crochet. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch, remembering to insert your stitch markers into those stitches, and I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so we have made our way all the way around with our back loop single crochets. We have slip stitched into that chain 1 space and did a chain up of 1 and cut. And now we are all done with our collar, so we can set this off to the side. Getting started on my underarm, we're going to switch out to our 6.5mm hook and start off by making a chain from our underarm down to the bottom of our top. I'm going to place my first chain right underneath my chest for our bat wing. So I'm going to make a chain of 40, and that's 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain, do a chain up of 3. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a double crochet. So yarn over and insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off. We're going to yarn over, pull through 1. We're going to have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Let's do 1 more double crochet together. So yarn over, insert into that next chain, pull through 2, pull through 2. Put 1 double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one because we're going to increase together. I've put 1 double crochet into every chain, leaving that last chain, so now we're going to do an increase of 2 into there. So yarn over, insert your hook into that last chain with 1 double crochet, and then into that same last chain, our second double crochet. From here, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, And now we're going to do a row of front post double crochets. So let's get that started. We're going to yarn over, and then we're going to insert our hook into the body of the double crochet from our previous row. So instead of going in through the top loops, we're actually going to be inserting our hook underneath that double crochet. So let's do that one more time. We're going to skip this last double crochet right here and insert our hook into that next double crochet. So insert your hook underneath and bring it through the other side. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. And from here, we're going to double crochet per usual. We should have 3 loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to do this for the entirety of the row. So let's just do the next few together. Yarn over, insert your hook into that next double crochet. So going underneath the body, and then bringing it through the other side. Yarn over, pull through. Should have 3 loops on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do just one more. Yarn over, insert your hook underneath that next double crochet, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Continue to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch until we reach our last double crochet from our previous row, so not counting our chain of 3. And then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I have made my way all the way down with my front post double crochets, and the last stitch that I went into was the last double crochet from our previous row. What we have left over is our chain of 3, so we're going to put 1 half double crochet into there to make sure that the edge of this isn't flopping around. So yarn over, and then we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch from our previous row with a half double crochet. So insert, pull through. We should have 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Now we're going to switch back out to our double crochet row. So do a chain of 3, flip our work, and put 1 double crochet into every stitch while maintaining the increase that we have along this end. And we're going to alternate between a double crochet row with an increase and a row of all front post double crochets until this reaches the corner of our underarm, making sure that we meet back right after our double crochet row. And I'll meet you back so we can get started on the shoulder. Alright, so I now have my underarm portion all finished up, and I only have 3 rows. That's all that I need, so just to let you know, I have a total of 2 inches or 5 centimeters in width, and from here we should have all ended on our double crochet row right after we did our increase. So from here we're going to make a chain that reaches all the way up to our shoulder. My shoulder chain is going to be a total of 25, and that is 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain up of 3. We're going to prepare for a double crochet and then insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. And we're going to put 1 double crochet into every chain, and then I'll meet you back once we reach the body portion to show you guys how we're going to do our front post double crochets from there. Alright, so I have put 1 double crochet into every chain. And since we are on our even number row, this is going to be a front post double crochet row. Now that we're at the body, we're going to add 1 more double crochet into the body to make up for this double crochet that we have on the edge right here. And now we can get started with putting 1 front post double crochet into every stitch. So since this double crochet counts as this double crochet right here, we're going to put our first front post double crochet into this next stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that second double crochet that we have from our previous row, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do 1 more. Yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Continue to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch, while remembering to put 1 half double crochet into that last stitch from our previous row. To work our way up to our double crochet row, do a chain of 3, flip your work, and put 1 double crochet into every stitch. And we're going to alternate between a double crochet and a front post double crochet row until we reach our collar. This is going to be where the width of our sweater comes from, so if you need a bigger size or want a slouchier fit, continue to add rows till it's wide enough for you. I'll meet you back after double crochet row. And now that we are back, I have just finished up going in with my shoulder rows. I have a total of 9 rows, and my base is 5 inches or 12 centimeters. I ended along the top right after a double crochet row, and now we are ready to connect it into our collar. So the first thing we're going to want to make sure is that the ribbing of our collar is faced up towards us, and the ribbing that we have along the back side of our body portion is faced down because we want the smooth portion to be the outside. I'm placing my collar along the left side of my shoulder portion. I'm going to start by inserting my hook into that stitch that my stitch marker is into. I'm going to take this out now, and then from here I'm going to yarn over and pull through everything on my hook. And now we are nice and attached. From here we're going to be slip stitching into the next 2 stitches into the base to work our way up to the next row. So insert your hook into that next stitch, making sure we're going down towards the point of our collar. We're going to slip stitch up 1 and then slip stitch up 2. We're going to flip our work, and then we're going to do the next row in our body portion, which is our front post double crochet. Since we're working down our collar, we're going to have to do a decrease of 2 into the 2 stitches nearest to the base. And how we're going to do our decrease of 2 front post double crochets is by starting with the yarn over, and then underneath the first and second double crochet from our previous row, we're going to insert our hook. So sliding underneath the first and the second double crochet, we're going to do our front post double crochet per usual from here. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Once we have that, we're going to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch. Remembering to do a half double crochet when we reach our last stitch. Then to work our way up to the next row, do a chain of 3, flip your work, then put 1 double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back when we have just 2 stitches right before our base so that we can do our decrease of 2 double crochets together. Alright, so we are on our second body row, which was our double crochets, making our way all the way up. We have 1, 2 stitches until we reach our base, so let's just do our decrease of 2 double crochets together. So yarn over, insert our hook into that second to last stitch, pull through. Also insert your hook into that last stitch, yarn over, pull through. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook. So from here, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our decrease of 2 double crochets. Now let's connect it into the base. Let's count up 1, count up 2, slip stitch into that second stitch to close off this first row, and our second row and our next row is going to be started the same way we started off our decrease of 2 front post double crochet. So let's get that started. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches into the base. There's 1, there's 2, and flip our work. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook underneath that first double crochet, which is our decrease, and our next double crochet as well. You're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And then from here, continue to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch. And we're going to repeat the 2 rows that we just did, making our way all the way down to our middle stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I'm back and I've just finished up the first half of my front panel. And now from here, we're going to do pretty much the same thing, But instead of doing decreases, we're going to be doing increases, working our way all the way up until we reach our shoulder stitch marker. Now, since I ended along the bottom, I'm going to do the following row in my row sequence, and then I'm going to leave the last stitch so that we can do an increase of 2 double crochets together. Alright, so I am back and I've just put 1 double crochet into every stitch, leaving that last one. Now to do our increase, we're just going to be putting 2 double crochets into that last stitch. So go ahead and yarn over, insert, pull through 2, pull through 2. There's my first, and then 1 more double crochet into that same last stitch. And now from here, we're going to be connecting it into the base the same way that we have been doing. So we're going to count up 1, count up 2, into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch, and now we're going to increase with our front post double crochets as well. So to work our way up to that row, we're going to slip stitch up the 2 following stitches into the base. So here's my first, and then here's my second, and now we're going to flip our work. And now from here, we're going to find the first double crochet from our previous row, and then just insert our hook underneath that stitch with 2 front post double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook underneath that stitch with 1 front post, and then into that same stitch, working underneath that entire stitch, a second front post double crochet. And then that's it. From here, we're going to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 3, and then continue to repeat these 2 rows that we just did together, making our way all the way up until we reach the shoulder stitch marker stitch. Once we do, I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back and I have made my way all the way up to my stitch marker over here. Now that we've made our way up here, we're going to do the same amount of rows as our shoulder portion along the side. So the next row that I have to do is a front post double crochet row. So all we're going to do from here is chain up 1, 2, and then we're going to start by putting 1 front post double crochet into that first stitch that we have. Just like that, and then continue to put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch, half double crochet at the end of this row, do a chain up of 3, flip our work, and then 1 double crochet into every stitch. Maintain these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of shoulder rows as this side, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, you guys, so I am back and I have just finished up the shoulder portion. Now, since we all should have ended along the top, I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to do the underarm portion together. So first things first, we're going to need to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made when we did our shoulder. So if you guys have my numbers, I made a chain of 25. So counting from the top, I counted down 25 stitches and then inserted my stitch marker. Now from there, I've inserted my hook into that stitch marker stitch. I'm now going to insert my yarn onto my hook and start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 is not going to count as a stitch. We just need the height, and now we can get started with our decrease. So making sure that we're working down towards the bottom of our sweater, we're going to start with a decrease of 2 front post double crochets. So all that's going to be is a yarn over, and then into that same stitch that our chain 2 is coming out of, and into the following stitch, working our way down towards the bottom, we're going to insert our hook into both of those stitches with a front post double crochet. So the same thing as a regular front post double crochet, but we're just working behind 2 double crochets. And all we're going to do from here is put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch, remembering to do a half double crochet into that last. And then at the end of the row, flip our work and then do the next row in our row sequence, which is going to be a double crochet. So put 1 double crochet into every stitch, because remember when we were doing our underarm, we increased into every other row. Once we have our following double crochet row all finished up, I will meet you guys back just to remind you how we're going to decrease into our front post double crochet rows once more. Alright, so I've just made my way all the way up with my double crochet row. Now I'm back at the top, so we need to start our following row, which is going to start with a decrease of 2 front post double crochets. So what we're going to do is chain 2. And then from here, we're just going to yarn over, find that second and third double crochet from our previous row, and then do a regular front post double crochet into there, and then that's it. Don't forget to close off this row with a half double crochet, and then from there we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as when we started this piece off with. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back so we can do the back panel. Alright, so I am back. My underarm portion is all finished up, and after my last row I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now the entirety of my front panel is now all finished, and we're going to get started with our back panel, and that's actually going to start off the same way that we did the front panel. So just as a refresher, we're going to start off with the same chain that we made for the underarm, doing the same increases for the same amount of rows. Right after that, we're going to make the same chain that works all the way up to our shoulder and do the same amount of shoulder rows. And once we reach this portion, I will meet you guys back so we can connect it into the collar together. All right, so I'm back and I have just finished up the underarm and the shoulder portion for my back panel. And now we're going to connect it into the base. So first things first, we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the ribbing that we have is going to be faced up towards us. So we're actually looking at the inside when it comes to the front panel. And then when it comes to doing the little portion of the back panel that we have, we're going to make sure that the ribbing is faced down. And once we have that, we're going to start by slip stitching into that shoulder stitch marker stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook into there. We're going to yarn over, pull through everything, and now our shoulder is nice and attached. Now from here, we're going to be working our way up to our following row. So all we're going to do is slip stitch up the 2 following stitches. So insert your hook into that next stitch with 1 slip stitch, and then into that following stitch with another slip stitch, and then we're going to flip our work. And now that our work is flipped, the only thing that we're going to do now is continue to do our front post double crochet rows and our double crochet rows, making our way all the way across the back of our collar. And then I will meet you back so that we can do our shoulder and our underarm together. All right, so I am back and I have just made my way all the way across the back half of my collar. I have worked into that last stitch that we have, and now what we're going to do is do our shoulder portion. So the shoulder portion is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to be alternating between a double crochet row and then a front post double crochet row with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows as all of our other shoulder portions. And then once we have that all finished up, I'll meet you guys back so that we can finish it off with our underarm. All right, so we are back and the shoulder portion for our back panel is all finished up, and now we're going to do our underarm. So first things first, we're going to need to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made when we made the chain that reached up to our shoulder. So if you guys have my numbers, I made a chain of 25. So counting from the top, I inserted my stitch marker into the 25th stitch. Now, since we should all be along the bottom and our following row should be a double crochet row, I'm going to chain 3, flip my work, and then put 1 double crochet into every stitch until we have 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. Alright, so I've made my way all the way up with my double crochet row because that was the following row in my row sequence. I left 2 stitches right before my stitch marker, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2. So how we do that is yarn over, insert your hook into that following stitch, pull through, and then into the stitch right after that, pull through. Once we have those 4 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through the first 3, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and our decrease is all finished up. Now, just like how we've done for all of our other underarm portions, we're only going to be decreasing into every other row. So since my following row is going to be a front post double crochet row, we're just going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 front post double crochet into every stitch, closing off this row with a half double crochet. And then from there, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as all of our other pieces. Once we have that all finished up, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alrighty, so I am back. I have just finished up the underarm portion for my back panel. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. It's actually what you see right here, but we have already flipped our work wrong side out because we're ready to seam up the sides. So first things first, like I just mentioned, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out so that all the ribbing is faced along the outside. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now from here, we're just going to do a single crochet seam. So start by finding that first available stitch within the front panel, insert your hook into there, find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there, and once we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're just going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, go ahead and insert. Next stitch into the back panel, go ahead and insert again, and then single crochet, and that is it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. And when we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut and repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so I am back. I have just finished up seaming all of my sides, and now we're going to seam the shoulder together. And seaming the shoulder is going to be pretty similar to the sides, so we are still going to want to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into the 2 stitches that we have within the collar that our front and back panels coming out of, and we're doing that so that we don't have any gaps. Now right after that, we're going to be inserting our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 just to secure. And then from here, we should have a handful of side rows to work into within the front and the back panel. Now all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row to make sure that we get the height. If we just put 1 single crochet, it'll kind of scrunch up on us. But what we're going to do is find our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm just going to insert my hook into that top loop within the front panel, and then we're going to find our first side row within the back panel, which this is mine right here. I'm going to insert into that top loop, and then I'm going to single crochet. So there's my first single crochet, and like I said, we're going to be putting 2 into every side row. So now inserting into that same side row within the front panel, go ahead and insert. Same side row within the back panel, go ahead and insert, and then single crochet. And then that's pretty much it. Let's just do one more side row together. This is my following side row right over here. This is my top loop. So I'm just going to insert my hook, and then within the back panel, find that following side row. This is mine right here. Insert my hook into there, and then single crochet with just 1. And then 1 more into that same side row within the front and the back panel. So into that same side row within the front, same side row within the back, and then single crochet. And we're just going to continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're just going to repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that everything is all seamed up, the next thing we're going to start working on is our sleeve. So first things first, we're going to need to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam. Next, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we're working clockwise or to the left for our first single crochet row. Now we should have just a handful of side rows to work into, so all we're going to do into there is insert our hook into every side row with 2 single crochets. So I just did my first. I'm going to be doing another single crochet into that same side row. And that is my first one. Let's do the next one together. Into that following side row, I'm going to insert my hook into there with a single, and then into that same side row with another single, and then continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. And then once we reach the shoulder, just put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up and around. When we reach our side rows, continue to put 2 single crochets into every side row, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so now that we have just finished up our single crochet row, our following row is going to be a double crochet row, and we're going to be decreasing into the first 2 and into the last 2 stitches of every double crochet row. So right after we slip stitched, we're going to chain 3 and flip our work, and we want to make sure that we are flipping our work so that once we do our front post double crochet row, all of that ribbing is going to be on the inside so that the sleeve and the body match. So like I said, we're going to start with a decrease. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that first stitch, pull through, that following stitch, pull through. Once we have those 4 loops, yarn over, pull through the first 3, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and then put 1 double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 so that we can decrease together again. Alright, so I've made my way all the way around with my double crochet row. I have left the last 2 stitches, and now we're going to do another decrease. So yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last, pull through, into that last, pull through 3, pull through 2, and then now to close off this row, we're going to count up the 3 chains that we made when we started off this row. So here's 1, Here's 2, here's 3. Into that third chain, go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything, and now this double crochet row, or row number 2, is all finished up. And now we're going to do our following row, which is going to be a front post double crochet row. So chain 2 and then flip our work. And now within the front post double crochet rows, we are not going to be doing any increases or decreases, so this is going to be pretty simple for us. Just to do the first one, we're going to yarn over, find that first double crochet from our previous row, which is our decrease, insert your hook underneath there with our first front post double crochet, and that is basically it. Continue to put one front post double crochet into every stitch, and then once we reach the end of the row, we're going to slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row. And then right after that, chain 3, flip our work, do a double crochet row that starts and ends with a decrease of 2 double crochets, and then a front post double crochet row right after that. We just want to make sure that we are flipping our work after every row so that the ribbing that we have is along the inside. And that's basically it for the sleeve, pretty simple. Continue to do this until we make our way all the way down to our wrist. And then I'll meet you guys back so that we can get started on our cuff. Alright, so I am back and the entirety of my sleeve is all finished. Now I have a total of 33 rows and my total length from my first single crochet row is just about 18.5 inches or 47 centimeters, and I made my way all the way down to my wrist. Now from here we're going to switch out to our 5mm hook, and then we're going to start by making a chain the length that we'd like for our cuff to be. Now I would like for my cuff to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 15. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook into that chain. Once we have those 2 loops on our hook, just yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Now there's our first slip stitch. Let's do another one. Into that following chain, go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. And then that's it. We're going to continue to put one slip stitch into every chain. And a really quick tip that I have for you guys when it comes to doing our slip stitches is make sure that we're not accidentally tugging too tightly on our working yarn after we finish every stitch. Otherwise, the following row can be a little too tight to work into. So now that I've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're going to need to slip stitch it into the base. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into that following stitch. So go ahead and insert, yarn over, pull through everything, and now our first row is nice and attached. And then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and now we're going to be putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So let's all start by finding the last stitch from our previous row and insert our hook into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, into that following stitch's back loop, pull through everything, and continue to do this until we reach the end of the row. And now that we're at the end of the row, just to get started, on our row 3, chain 1, flip our work, and now we're going to continue to put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. I will meet you back at the base just once more to show you guys how we're going to connect it into the base again. And now that we've made our way all the way down, just to connect it once more, find that next stitch into the base and insert your hook into there to connect this row. And then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then that's it. Continue to repeat these 2 rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then I will meet you back so that we can seam our cuff together. Alright, so we are back and we have just finished up our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now all we're going to do is seam it up. And this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so we want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out. Now next we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Start by doing a yarn over, pull through everything, and a chain 1 to secure. Now to do our first stitch, we're going to find that first available stitch into the front panel, and then we're going to insert our hook only in through that front loop, and then we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel and insert only in through that back loop. Now once we have all 3 of those loops on our hook, we're just going to yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and then that's it. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop, Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything, and then that's it. Just continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then when we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that both of our sleeves and cuffs are all finished up, the last thing we're going to do is our bottom band. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out. We're going to be inserting our 6.5mm hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row because we need it to cinch. So start by finding this first side row that we have right here. Insert your hook into that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Let's do the next one. This is my following side row. Insert your hook into that top loop with another single crochet, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so I'm back with my single crochet row. We have slip stitched into that chain space, and now we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. We're going to keep it at a 6.5mm hook, and I want my bottom band to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 12. And now that we have our chain, our bottom band is going to be exactly the same as our cuff. So just to get this first row started, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1, and then into that following chain, or that second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch, and then put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Once we reach the base, we're going to connect it into the base the same exact way that we did for the cuff, and then just continue to do our back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I will meet you guys back just to remind you how we're going to do our seam once more. Alright, so I've just made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. I don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam everything together. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out because this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so the same seam that we did for the cuff. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Now what we're going to do from here is the same seam, so I'm just going to show you guys how to do the first one. So start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel. Go ahead and insert your hook in through that front loop. And then into that back panel, insert your hook in through that back loop. Once we have those 3 loops on our hook, just yarn over, pull through all 3, and then that is it. We're just going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that we have seamed up our bottom band, we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!